Europe a few months ago, we learned about the inflation going on in Germany during the First World War and what it was like to live during that time. I was given the role of a person just trying to survive, and I was given a monthly salary where every month I would be making more money, but due to the value of money going down, so did my supplies I'd have to purchase every week. So in the end, I ended up surviving with just a few hundred German marks left, while most of my peers ended up going bankrupt or owing money to the government.
One of my favorite simulations or projects had to be the French Revolution because it brought history to life, and you got to see the peasants, the clergy, the lords, and the king and queen, and I got to be the king. And you got to see how the first and second estate mistreated the third estate, and that's what started the French Revolution.
My favorite simulation was the Red Terror. It was during the Russian Civil War. It was the Bolsheviks versus the Mensheviks. We had to find who the traitor was, and you couldn't really trust anyone because you didn't know who was who. And it gave you the feeling of how it would be to live in Russia.
My favorite simulation was the French Revolution because as the noble, we made the peasants work a lot. Later on, they realized that we were mistreating them very poorly, so they revolted against us, which started the revolution.
My favorite simulation was the Germany economy simulation. We basically try to manage our money like if we were German people after the First World War. The government printed too much money, and it made it hard for people to feed their families and survive, and it basically paved the way for Hitler.
My favorite simulation in history class was the island simulation, because as a group, we had to figure out how to survive without the help of the teacher.
My favorite topic was World War II because in World War I we didn't really see a lot of countries being involved, but in World War II it truly was a world war where a lot of countries were involved and a lot of countries were being destroyed.
My favorite topic we've studied was World War II. There was so many pieces to the puzzle and so many things happening that it just made a major impact on the world.
The reason I like World War II the most is because I got to learn why Hitler had so much hatred against the Jews, because he thought Jews were the reason why Germany was going through so many problems with debts and the Great Depression and so on and so on.
My favorite thing that I learned about was the Holocaust, because even though it was really depressing and about 12 million people died, there was a lot of Germans that were willing to put their lives out there in order to help the Jews be good, have food, and not die of starvation. And that was really cool.
My favorite topic was World War II because it was interesting to learn about the many battles, and my favorite battle was the Battle of Berlin, to see the Russians take over the German city. And finally, it was interesting to see how the Allies conquered the Axis powers.
My favorite topic would have to be World War II because it really showed how the world can come together to achieve a common goal.
My favorite topic was World War II, specifically the Battle of Britain. And it's an underdog story. It's Britain withstood 11 months of German bombing, and they handed Hitler his first defeat in World War II.
World history is better than my other classes because it was interesting learning about the history of government and how it evolved into today's world, because in the United States you have democracy, other countries have dictatorship, and some countries have changed their government into today's world. So it was interesting.
I like world history because it gives us lessons about the past and people who've done things before us. It also gives us a kind of a window to why the world is how the world is today.
I like world history class because when we're learning a unit, you actually feel that you're participating in the unit, and you feel like you're actually there because of how much detail of the unit we learned.
World history is better than my other classes because it's like being told a story that happened in the past and the outcome affects us today.
I like world history because it has more simulations and it has more activities to do, so it's more creative than the other classes.
History is important to study because it takes us to a trip to the past and it explains from where we are today, because like we learn from like our previous mistakes and it shows us how like we had our war, and like it tells us like we don't have to do that anymore because we already know what's right.
It's important to study history because it's like watching a movie. You won't understand the third one unless you watch the first two.
I think learning about history is important because it's interesting to know about our nation and how it was formed, and especially for people like me who want to major in political science and become lawyers or attorneys, it's important because if we ever want to advance to work for the US government, we would know about our laws and how our nation was formed and why these laws exist.
History is important because if we don't know our past, we'll never know where we're going in the future.
Studying history is important because we get to learn from our mistakes that we made in the past, and we get to see how countries evolved.
My favorite person that we studied was Rasputin because he was mysterious and he treated the Tsar air.
My favorite person is Harry Truman because he's the one that had one of the hardest choices in World War II. He's the one that said that to send the atomic bomb to Japan, and if it wasn't for him, many more would have died.
My favorite person we've studied was Gandhi because he had such bravery and control. It was a true testament to perseverance. My favorite person from history is Winston Churchill. He was one of England's greatest leaders and gave England courage during one of their darkest times. He also helped fight against one of the most evil people all throughout history, Hitler.
My favorite person would be Gandhi because he's a very wise person and he just wants peace for the world, and he gave independence to India.
My favorite person is Stalin. He is the leader of the USSR, and he's my favorite because he held immense power and he was such an evil ruler, but none of his people were able to figure it out.
Gandhi was my favorite person because he united his country peacefully and he helped them get their independence from Britain.
My favorite person that we studied this year was Stalin. I really liked learning about him because I liked how he made everybody around him fear him. And he did sacrifice a lot of lives to make his country better, but that really doesn't justify what he did.
My favorite person from history that we studied was Napoleon Bonaparte because he came from poor beginnings, he worked hard, and he became famous and built an empire.